Hey teachers, today I wanted to walk you through what I do to organize any extra papers that are in my classroom. That's extra handouts, extra copies, extra flyers from the office. Whatever it may be, I have a super simple, cost-effective, and realistic way to organize all of those extra papers in your classroom. You don't want them ending up on the floor, scattered around the room in random places, or even worse, on your desk. So I'm going to walk you through why my system works, what the system is, and how you can keep up with it. This is going to save you so much time. Let's dive in. Before we dive into how I organize the extra papers bin, I first wanted to answer a couple of questions that typically come up. Why do I even need an extra papers bin? Can't I just toss these papers into a random bin or recycle them? And yes, you absolutely can. But when you do that, it will create a hunt for the paper when it's needed. Listen, we all make extra copies because we know inevitably a student's going to be absent or have to redo an assignment or have some sort of assignment that was lost. So why not make these assignments easily accessible to the students based upon the date that it was passed out? That way, if a student is absent or has a missing assignment, it's on them to go to the correct folder for that date to find that assignment. You don't have to run to the copy room anymore to make an extra copy because we can't find it in the bin or it's been recycled. Everything is there and ready to go. It saves you a lot of time and energy. In addition to that, if you work with co-teachers like interventionists, special education teachers, or even people on your team, and they need to take an assignment or a worksheet in order to accommodate, modify, or review it with a student, they don't need to bother you either. You don't need to make copies for them either. All they need to do is go to that extra papers bin, turn to the correct folder on the date that it was passed out, grab the assignment, and they're good to go. All of these things are important because it's putting the responsibility onto the person that needs the paper. The responsibility doesn't need to be on you, the teacher. You've already made the copies, you've already passed out the assignment. Now it's their opportunity to take responsibility for that assignment. The extra papers bin will save you a lot of time on the back end, I promise. Okay, let's jump into the supplies you'll need for your extra papers bin and how we can organize it so that it is the most effective for you and your students. The first thing that you'll need something to hold hanging file folders in. I typically use a crate. They're available at so many stores and anywhere from only $5 to $7. But if you happen to have a bin that has a little ledge where you could hang file folders, or if you have any type of hanging file folder storage that can sit out on a countertop, a shelf, or an empty desk, that will be perfect. I don't recommend using a file drawer for this because the drawer opening and closing, number one, will begin to drive you a little bit crazy. But number two, once that drawer is closed, out of sight, out of mind. And most of your papers will probably end up piled on top, not in the drawer. So I highly recommend using a separate type of bin to hang your file folders in. Once you've got your bin for your file folders to hang in, you'll need the actual file folders. So you'll want to grab anywhere between 31 and 40 file folders. It depends what your needs are, and I'm going to walk you through what I use each folder for. So you'll need file folders. They'll hopefully come with the labels on them, and you'll need a bin to keep the file folders in. All of that should cost you about $10 if you don't have it, but I'm sure you can find these items on your campus for free. This is going to be simple and it's going to help you out so much. Let's talk about how I label my file folders next. You've got your bin and you've got your hanging file folders. Now it's time to get them labeled and organized. You're going to take 31 of those folders and you're going to number and label them from 1 to 31. These folders represent the days of the month. So if you pass out an assignment on the 17th, you'll put the extra copies in the front of that folder 17. That way, everything is organized by the day that you passed it out. If a student is absent, they can go to that date that they were absent and they can look for the assignments that they might be missing. If students have a remake or a retake on an assignment, they can go ahead and look at the specific date that that assignment was passed out. It's very easy for them to access it, and it puts the responsibility on to the student to grab that folder. In addition to the 31 hanging file folders that you've got in your bin, you might want to have a couple of extra to help organize some papers that maybe don't always have a home. So for example, at the front of my extra papers bin, I have a hanging file folder specifically for my classroom newsletter. I send home a digital and paper copy every single month, so I put extras there. That way if students need them, or if I only send home one copy of the newsletter and they need two for two different households, they're easy to access. It's also great for my co-teachers. They can see what we're doing in class and they can grab one as well. I also keep a hanging file folder just for flyers that come from the office and cafeteria. So things like cafeteria menus, picture day information, sports information, anything that has to do with the school that comes from the office or cafeteria. I pass those out to my students, and then the extras are going to go into that hanging file folder. That way, if they need an extra copy or something was missed, students can easily grab that. The next hanging file folder I keep at the front is for answer keys. This one is super helpful. So typically I always display the answer key up onto the document camera, and this could be an answer key for homework, during a test talk, anything that the students might need to grade. So by putting the answer keys into this hanging file folder, they're easily accessible when students make up work and need to grade that work, or if I need to grab an answer key to a quiz or test in order to grade a student's missing work. It's also great for my co-teachers if they need to grade an assignment for a special education student and they need that answer key. They can easily grab it and they know exactly where to get it. So these hanging file folders are really a great way to organize, but it's also a great way to share and put the responsibility onto the people who need the item at that time. That way everyone is not hunting you down to give them the papers, answer keys, or flyers that they need. They're right at their fingertips and it's no work on your end. The extra papers bin is a super easy and effective tool that you can use in your classroom to keep all of the papers organized. But there are some things that you can do to make sure that it stays organized. So the first thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to make sure that students are well versed in the rules and expectations of the extra papers bin. If you need a little help, check out my website, teachingintherealworld.com. I have free ISN tape-ins there that you can print out and go over with students. It talks about how you put the papers into the folders, where students can find certain papers, and everything that they need in order to keep the extra papers bin organized. With that, there's also a free printable PDF of a letter to parents to let them know how the extra papers bin works. That way, if they look at their student's gradebook and see that there's missing assignments, or if their student was absent, they can coach them through how to go into class, access the extra papers bin, and get the things that they need in order to complete their assignments. Now that you have everyone well versed on what the extra papers bin is and how to use it, there's a couple of little tricks that you can do to make sure that papers are getting into the right number or date, as well as being able to be found in that date. So the first thing you'll want to do is when you're lesson planning, if you're going to pass out any type of handout, ISN tape-in, any type of paper copy of any sort, you'll want to just note that in your lesson plan. Really, it'll only take you about 3 extra seconds to write it down. I personally do bullet point lesson planning, so it's super easy to put a little asterisk and say, okay, I passed out ISN tape-in for multiplying fractions. And there it is in my plan book on that specific date. Another way that you can ensure that students are able to easily find any papers that you pass out, especially ISN tape-ins, is when they're working in their interactive student notebooks and when you're working in your master interactive student notebooks, always be sure to write the date on the top. That way they'll know when that tape-in was put into that notebook, and if they are absent, they can check with a friend or check your master notebook to see which file folder they should look in to grab that ISN tape-in. Another way you can ensure that your students are looking at the proper folder with the proper date is your gradebook. So when you enter items into the gradebook, you're going to want to put the date of that item as the date that it was passed out. For example, if you give a test on the 9th, but the students don't get that test back until the 11th, what you'll want to do is you would put in the gradebook that the test was given, administered, and taken on the 9th. That's the date for that grade. When you do this, it will really help students to be able to take control of finding any missing assignments. If they have a printout from their online grading portal, or if their parents have looked on the online grading portal and they see that they are missing certain assignments, they can look at the date in that gradebook and go to that folder in the extra papers bin. So all you'll want to do is when you're entering grades into your gradebook, use the date that the assignment was passed out, not the date that it was returned to students or the date that it was put into your gradebook. The last thing you want to do to keep your extra papers bin pristine and clean is you want to clean it out every single quarter. I typically wait until after all of my grades have closed for that quarter, meaning students can't make up any other missing work, and I'll clean out that extra papers bin. If there's items already in the bin from the current quarter, leave those obviously, but you'll want to clean it out every quarter. Otherwise, it gets to be too many papers, and then students end up pulling things from old quarters that they cannot complete anymore to complete and turn in. So you'll just want to make sure that you clean out your extra papers bin every single quarter. And there you have it. That's all you need to organize all of the papers in your classroom. I know that the extra papers bin sounds very simple, but believe me, the simple things are what make your life easier, and this will help to keep you organized. So be sure to grab that bin, crate, or anything that can hang on to those extra file folders. Then you'll want to have anywhere between 31 and 40 folders, label them according to the days of the month, and then add in any extras that you think will help you to stay organized in your classroom. Be sure to put the extra papers bin somewhere that's easily accessible. I typically put it somewhere near the door. That way students can pop in and grab the papers they need. The same with my co-teachers, and they don't have to disrupt the class. This is a simple solution that's worked for me for almost 2 decades, and it's something that I highly recommend doing. It's something that will help to keep all of the papers where they need to be, and it will really help to put the responsibility onto your students in regards to finding those missing assignments that they need to complete. I hope that this helps. For more resources, please check out my website, teachingintherealworld.com, or you can check out other videos on my YouTube channel, Teaching in the Real World. Happy teaching!